Hi there, welcome. This is another one of Bob's crazy shows, the world of college cost challenges. But today happens to be opening day of baseball season. So I had visions and working toward this, and I had a taping of another show just a half an hour ago, and I'm thinking, opening day of baseball season. There are people that have spring fever. I mean, they want to get out, they want to work on the yard, but then we have those people that didn't go to the Grapefruit down in Florida to follow their team. It's opening day of baseball season. So I've got to have something that is connected with the world of college cost challenges. And I don't know, how do you do that? Okay, so first of all, my Red Sox fans, family Red Sox, you have to forgive me, but Rob couldn't come up with the Red Sox shirt, and this happens to be his team. Well, it happens to be one of our teams, okay? And I had a yard goat hat, but I didn't know if you'd be able to see the goat. So I've got an Orioles hat on only because I like the color of it. But, okay, so how do we tie this in? And I just gave the notes to Karen that the title of today's program is Strike Three, You're Out. And subtitle, it's just deja vu all over again, Yogi Berra. Deja vu all over. So when we talk about baseball and we talk about opening day of season, I had a hard time getting these things last night from the Nagel Baseball Museum in their garage. But it's fun to talk about baseball. And that's a heavy bet. Opening day. Well, I just can't devote any more of this time to baseball. And no stories out of school. People at the office thought I should wear this the whole program. But I thought, okay, forget that noise. But boy, that's a heavy mask. Strike three, you're out. And we're going to tie this into the world of college cost challenges. Just this last week, we had news of an education scam, a big deal about parents and coaches being arrested for crazy stuff, okay? So I could devote the rest of this program and maybe the next 2 or 3 programs to this debacle, but we have some people that may and probably will, some of them, go to jail. Now, we're talking about the world of college cost challenges, and we have people that are involved in scams, and I just saw this morning an article on the internet. Department of Education has opened up a preliminary investigation of institutions named in the Department of Justice investigation into admissions scams, and the documents obtained recently. 8 universities that you've probably never heard of before. These are universities that are out in like Stanford, Georgetown, UCLA, University of San Diego, USC in California, University of Texas, Wake Forest, Yale. I mean, these are schools that you've never heard of, right? But we know so far that cheating has been going on. Prosecutors have arrested 50, they've charged and arrested 50 people, 33 wealthy parents for carrying out a scheme to cheat standardized tests or bribe college coaches who then helped prospective students gain admission by falsely claiming they were athletic recruits. In a statement, Secretary DeVoe called the allegation actions by parents, some of whom allegedly paid more than $1 million to secure admission, and the term was disgraceful. So Yale, just a few days ago, rescinded admission of a student whose family paid $1.2 million to get her in admission to Yale. Every student deserves to be considered on their individual merits when applying to college, and it's disgraceful to see anyone breaking the law to get their children into school. So we start with that. 3 strikes, you're out. Kind of sad on baseball opening day, and I have to talk about scams. You know, scams in the education arena are not new. Every decade, we have dozens of this type of scam. We have not a chapter, but we have part of a chapter in the book, The World of College Cost Challenges, that refers to some of these. And we've had clients, parents, talk to us about how they were scammed. And this book, by the way, is 85% parents sharing with parents what they can share with younger parents, what they did well, what they didn't do well, and some of those lessons. But we had some that were caught up in scams, and not to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, but when you get to $4,000, $5,000, $8,000, that's pretty sad. So let's just talk about some scams in the past, recent past, by the way, where we say, that's not new. University of Missouri phishing scam. 2001, victims, college students around the country. 2 brothers hijacked 8 million email addresses from students in 2,000 colleges across the country. They used this information to run a massive email marketing spam campaign selling products and services from affiliates that they had. Now, they got a 1% response out of this 8 million addresses that they had. And the brothers made more than $4.1 million, where the student, the parents, the schools, they didn't benefit anything, but this scam netted the brothers for over $4 million. Rio Salada College, 2006, the Rio Salada College financial office were the ones that got hit there. And here's this person that ran an illegal business faking documents like high school diplomas and tax forms that could be used to apply for Pell Grants. Now, if I'm eligible for a Pell Grant, that's fine. If I'm not eligible and I go out and buy forged documents to make me eligible, that's quite a scam. They learned about this, the Rio Salada College, and it was upwards of $600,000 that was bogus student aid. Multi-school student loan scandal, 2007. Students with loans from specific colleges, financial aid officers from over 100 prestigious schools took bribes and gifts from private student loan lenders in exchange for recommending their companies. The students affected were eventually reimbursed a total of $3 million. Federal government defrauded, 2011. U.S. Department of Justice in states California, Florida, Illinois, Indiana Education Management Corp., a company based in Pittsburgh, violated the Higher Education Act by giving admissions officials at colleges bonuses for bringing in unqualified students who would receive higher amounts of federal financial aid. Some students given this aid were illiterate or under the influence of drugs or enrolled in computer classes despite never having a computer, didn't know anything about computers. The federal government ended up being defrauded $11 billion in this scam. So scams aren't new, it's just we have a different touch. We have this particular touch recently where parents of children who wanted their child to go to a prestigious brand name school so that later on they could have a network and a social get in for an interview, possibly for a job, or have that brand go with them somewhere in the future. St. Regis scam, 2005. Customers, employers of those who presented fake degrees. They sold thousands of fake online degrees from various real universities, primarily St. Regis University, to students from more than 131 countries. The recipients were presented fake degrees in education, medicine, engineering. Size, these two people made $6 million in profits before being caught and prosecuted in 2008. Financial aid test manipulation, 2008. The victims, federal student aid programs. Sue Caldwell, a test proctor for the Ability to Benefit. The Ability to Benefit programs. I love the names of these programs. Assessment test in Baltimore changed scores to qualify students to receive federal grants. Caldwell helped 72 students illegally receive almost $600,000 in grant money. Next, inmate identity theft, 2007 to 2009. Victims, inmates at Leith Correctional Institution and Webster University. Michelle Owens, while confined in the institution in South Carolina, filed 23 separate financial aid applications to Webster University using the names of other fellow inmates. Size, Owens requested a total of $467,000 in loans, eventually cashing some in for personal use before being caught. Finally, falsified financial aid apps, 2008-2011. Victim, U.S. Department of Education. For-profit college university in San Diego pleaded guilty to falsifying financial aid. The size of the civil suit, $700,000, owed to the U.S. Department of Education. Scams are not new. They've been around. And this is just in the last 12, 15 years. I could go back to research that we have that goes back years and years and years before that. We could go back to just after the GI Bill, after World War II, and the scams that were out there for GIs that were returning and how to milk and bilk the system. So, it's kind of sad, but there are different kinds of scams, and we should be talking about that a little bit. Deja vu all over again, Yogi Berra? Well, when we get into research of scams and things sound awfully familiar. Didn't this just happen last month? I read about this last fall. Gee, that was really something. It couldn't have been more than a year ago where I saw, on and on and on and on. Well, here's some information that we kind of culled through and used some of the material for our book, but I went back here just in the last couple of weeks and looked at some of this research. And it was very, very interesting that when we looked at the history, for example, and we look at back in the 60s, following 2 decades of rising college enrollments, federal financial aid program is introduced to expand the access to a larger number of students. That's in the 60s. 1965, the Higher Education Act creates a set of programs offering grants and loans to college students on the basis of family income. Expected family contribution, have them test, and how much should we expect from the family to pay? In the 70s, boosted by federal student aid programs, college enrollments continue to rise. Well, when we go back to the 70s and we look at 8.5 million students, okay, and not too much longer, as we'll see, student enrollment 14 million. So on one hand, we have this growing tide of students to go to school, and on the other hand, we have all of these things to get more federal financial aid, and we kind of mislabel, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But from 70 to 71, federal student aid exceeds 10.5 billion for the academic year, up from 700 million. So from 700 million a few years before that to 10.5 billion. 74, as in appropriations for federal student aid programs, they failed to keep pace with the annual rise in college tuition loans, begin to outweigh. So we've got this dynamic of the influx of students, an incredible increase in aid, and we've got the universities that just going with the punches. 1975, number of students enrolled in American public and private institutions in the fall tops 11 million, up from that 8.5 million. October of 79, Congress creates the Department of Education. 1979, Department of Education. Among its responsibilities is the administration of federal student aid. 1980s, college tuition and fees rise almost twice the rate of inflation. I shared with you, we just finished this last fall, our 35th college cost projection. And we worked for a number of years with the College Board and with LIMRA, and providing small, medium, and large universities and what the projected costs are to help what we call today early stage parents. 1989, President Bush convenes an education summit, quote unquote, with the nation's governors. Among its goals is a substantial increase in how we can provide aid. In the 90s, the rise in population of college-age Americans, the number of college graduates expected to increase. The number of jobs, not so many. Okay, so we have to ride through recessions. We have to ride, and we separate schools, public and private. So public is subsidized by taxpayer dollars in the state. Private by tuition, by grants, by donations from alumni, and so on and so on. So you've got an interesting dynamic there in both cases when we have a major recession. And how do we recover from that situation? Well, 1992, President Bush signs Higher Education Act amendment, and it increased federal financial aid. 92, Federal District Court rules, how about this scam? We have an antitrust situation with 26 universities involved in an overlap group, they called them, so overlap group, secret communication within their circle to agree to a standard financial aid so that there was no competition between those schools. Everyone but MIT agreed to settlement there, and MIT said that we're not subject to antitrust. But that misses the point that here is a concerted effort by major schools in the country to agree at a level of financial aid, not limiting in any way, but increasing the need. And today that aid is over $1.5 trillion, okay? When we talk about credit card debt and mortgage debt and so on and so on. But we had years where we have increase in tuition, double what it was the previous year, double-digit increases 2 years back to back, 7% back to back. And then you have, going back to the public universities, we had for a number of years, private schools were increasing their tuition very much, but then recession came by, and public schools now exceeded the increase of the private schools. So even the public arena, and here was an interesting thing, it wasn't necessarily the increase in tuition, but we increased fees. And then if it wasn't the increase in tuition and fees, we had other ways of increasing. The point is, a lot of this money didn't go for education aspects as much as amenities. I'm not sure if we want to talk about scams in that respect, but I suspect that with the College Board, recent survey by the College Board, a nonprofit organization committed to raising academic standards and broadening access to higher education, tuition at public colleges and universities is up 10% over the last year. That's the second straight year. It gets into other aspects, and we'll talk about this in the future. But to me, when we talk about endowments reaching 20, 30, $35 billion, and we have campaigns over a 3-year period raising another $5 billion, and we have the same university where they're charging $70,000 a year, $300,000 for an education, and we will accept applicants where our major pursuit might be social studies, teaching, and so on, where how in heaven's name can I ever pay back that debt? So we have some interest groups out there that are saying, if that's the case, the university should share in that loan payment process. The other things that we talked about this in a previous program, that the private sector, corporations need in an employment situation to help an employee with this loan repayment. And there have been a number of programs that are out there, and we look to them as models and hope that can be replicated and duplicated in other respects. But we have companies like United Technologies for years has paid for graduate studies, books and tuition and so on. We have recently a company like Travelers, where they are, if a employee contributes to their 401k up to $6,500, they're paying toward their loan, $6,500. Travelers will contribute to that employee's 401k up to that amount. Now, that addresses this employee that has a mountain of student loan debt that I can't contribute to my 401k, which dramatically hurts me in the future because I've lost the compounding of my retirement plan. And here's another example where education funding is not just an education funding problem. It's a retirement problem. It's a retirement problem for parents of that student, and it's a retirement problem for the student, and it's a retirement problem for many corporations, public and private. Okay, so we have this situation where public and private and philanthropic, and I started with this article that I had in my previous program on Philanthropic Planner, Trends in Philanthropy, where we have mega gifts of billions of dollars. And where is that money going? Well, it could go to hundreds and thousands of scholarships for low and medium income. And I stash this money away. I get a tax deduction by corporation or individual in the tune of billions of dollars, where that money may not go out for a number of years, whether it's a donor advised fund or what have you. So we need to address this issue, not free education. That's illusory, and that's a joke in my mind. You can't in the middle of the stream provide free education and hold that out as a carrot or a cup of ice cream and say we're going to give free education. What about the existing student loan debt? How are we going to handle that? Well, I don't, and you've heard me say this before, we devote more of our time to disseminating information to parents of juniors and seniors in high school on how to qualify for financial aid and what to do with the FAFSA application and what your expected family contribution is. We devote that, clear out when we got a sophomore or junior in high school. And now there's more literature out there on to how do you handle student loan debt. And then you've got these scams that have to do with handling student loan debt. Oh, that's a whole different area of scams. And, you know, I hate to say this, of well-intended parents who love their children, want the best for them, and forget about these parents that are cheating and scamming and paying to get admission. But we have to address ways for early stage parents to attack this problem. The world of college cost challenges is great, but it's not sacrificing for education and sacrificing retirement. We need to do both. We need to do both, and we need to have strategies and alternatives, and we need to bring these various groups together, public, private, and philanthropic. This is not a small problem, but we need to address it in the future, and at the same time, help early stage parents with young children that this is a mission possible, not a mission impossible. So there's a lot to come, and I appreciate you tuning in, and happy opening day of baseball. Forget about the Yank, but Baltimore and my Cleveland Indians.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.